Day 305, Maccabean Revolt, 2 Maccabees 8, Wisdom 5-6, Proverbs 24 verses 30-34. Let's begin. 2 Maccabees 8. In truth, Judas Maccabeus, and those who were with him, went secretly into the villages, and calling together their relatives and friends, and accepting among them those who persevered in Judaism, they brought 6,000 men together. And they called upon the Lord to look upon his people, who were downtrodden by all, and to take pity on the temple, which was defiled by the impious. And even to take pity on the city by utter destruction, for it was willing to be immediately leveled to the ground, and to hear the voice of the blood that was crying out to him. So that he would remember also the most iniquitous deaths of the innocent little ones, and the blasphemies brought upon his name, and to show his indignation over these things. And so Maccabeus, having gathered together a multitude, could not be withstood by the Gentiles. For the wrath of the Lord had turned into mercy. And so, overwhelming the towns and cities unexpectedly, he set them on fire. And occupying strategic positions, he made no small slaughter of the enemies. Moreover, especially in the nights, he carried out expeditions in this way. And the fame of his virtuous strength was spread abroad everywhere. Then Philip, seeing that the man gained ground little by little, and that things frequently fell out in his favor, wrote to Ptolemy, governor of Coele-Syria and Phoenicia, to send auxiliaries to carry out the work of the king. And so, he quickly sent Nicanor, son of Patroclus, from his foremost friends, providing him with no less than 20,000 armed men from throughout the Gentiles, to wipe out the entire race of the Jews, joining with him Gorgias, a military man with very great experience in the things of warfare. Moreover, Nicanor decided to raise a tribute for the king of 2,000 talents, which was to be given to the Romans, and which would be supplied by means of the captivity of the Jews. And immediately he sent to the maritime cities, calling them to the auction of the Jewish slaves, promising them a parcel of 90 slaves for 1 talent, not reflecting on the vengeance which would befall him subsequently from the Almighty. Then, when Judas learned that Nicanor was approaching, he revealed it to those Jews who were with him. And certain ones among them, being afraid and not trusting in the justice of God, turned and fled away. In truth, others sold all that was in excess, and together beseeched the Lord that he would rescue them from the impious Nicanor, who had sold them before he even came near them. And if not for their sakes, then for the sake of the covenant which was made with their fathers, and for the sake of the invocation of his holy and magnificent name over them. But Maccabeus, calling together 7,000 who were with him, asked them not to be reconciled to the enemies, and not to fear the multitude of the enemies who came against them unjustly, but to struggle with fortitude, holding before their eyes the contempt that had been brought upon the holy place by them, and likewise also the mockery which they held to the injury of the city, even to the extent of overthrowing the institutions of old. For he said that these, indeed, trust in their weapons, as well as in their boldness, but we trust in the Almighty Lord, who is able to wipe out both those coming against us, and even the whole world, with one nod. Moreover, he reminded them also of the assistance of God which their parents had received, and how, under Sennacherib, 185,000 had perished. And of the battle by them, which was against the Galatians in Babylonia, how, when the event had arrived and the allies of the Macedonians hesitated, though they were only 6,000 in all, yet they slew 120,000, because of the help provided to them from heaven, and how, for the sake of these things, very many benefits followed. By these words, they were brought to constancy and were prepared to die for the laws and their nation. And so, he appointed his brothers as leaders over each division, Simon, and Joseph, and Jonathan, subjecting 1,500 men to each of them. And at that point, the holy book having been read to them by Esdras, and having given them a sign of the assistance of God, with himself leading the first point, he joined battle with Nicanor. And with the Almighty as their helper, they slew over 9,000 men. Furthermore, having wounded and disabled the greater part of the army of Nicanor, they forced them to take flight. In fact, they took away the money from those who came to buy them, and they pursued them everywhere. But they turned back at the close of the hour, for it was before the Sabbath. For this reason, they did not continue the pursuit. But having gathered together their weapons and spoils, they kept the Sabbath, blessing the Lord who had delivered them in that day, showering the beginning of mercy on them. In truth, after the Sabbath, they divided the spoils to the disabled, and the orphans, and the widows, and the remainder they kept for themselves and their own. And so, when these things were done, and supplication was made by all in common, they asked the merciful Lord to be reconciled to his servants unto the end. And among those who were fighting against them with Timothy and Bacchides, they slew more than 20,000, and they obtained the high fortresses, and they divided many spoils, making equal portions for the disabled, the fatherless, and the widows, and even the aged. And when they had carefully collected their weapons, they stored them all in strategic places, and, in truth, the remainder of the spoils they carried to Jerusalem. And they put to death Philarchus, a wicked man, who was with Timothy, who had brought many afflictions upon the Jews. And when they celebrated the song of victory at Jerusalem, they burned him who had set fire to the sacred doors, that is, Callisthenes, when he had taken refuge in a certain house, repaying him a worthy reward for his impieties. But as for that most vicious Nicanor, who had led in 1,000 merchants for the sale of the Jews, he was brought low with the help of the Lord, and by those whom he considered to be worthless. Putting aside the glorious vestments, fleeing by an inland route, he arrived alone at Antioch, having been brought to the greatest unhappiness by the destruction of his army. And he who had promised to pay a tribute to the Romans from the captives of Jerusalem, now professed that the Jews had God as their protector, and for this reason they were invulnerable, because they followed the laws established by him. Wisdom 5:6. Then the just will stand with great steadfastness against those who have oppressed them and have taken away their labors. Seeing this, they will be troubled with terrible fear, and they will be amazed at the suddenness of unexpected salvation. Driven toward regret, and through the anguish of their groaning spirit, they will say within themselves, "These are the ones whom we held for some time in derision and in mocking reproach. We foolish considered their life to be madness, and their end to be without honor. How is it that they are counted among the sons of God, and their place is among the holy? Therefore, we have strayed from the way of truth, and the light of justice has not shined on us, and the sun of understanding has not risen on us. We exhausted ourselves in the way of iniquity and perdition, and have walked a difficult way, while ignoring the way of the Lord. How has arrogance benefited us? Or what has exulting in riches brought us? All those things have passed away like a shadow, and like a messenger traveling quickly by. And like a ship passing over the waves of water, when it has gone by, its trace cannot be found, nor can the pathway of its keel in the waves. Or, like a bird flying through the air, there is no evidence of her journey to be found, but there is hardly a sound as the beating of her wings lifts up the air and, by the force of her journey, divides the air she has flown across, which was disturbed by her wings, and afterwards there is no sign of her journey to be found. Or, like an arrow shot at a selected mark, the air continues to be divided and to be brought together again, so that its passing is unknown. And in like manner we, having been born, continuously cease to exist, and indeed, we depart with no sign of virtue to show, but we are consumed in our malice. Such things those who sin said in hell. For the hope of the impious is like feathers, which are blown away by the wind, and like a thin foam, which is dispersed by a storm, and like smoke, which is scattered by the wind, and like the memory of a guest who passes by one day. But the just will live forever, and their reward is with the Lord, and the thought of them is with the Most High. Therefore, they will receive a beautiful kingdom and a crown of splendor from the hand of the Lord, for with his right hand he will cover them, and with his holy arm he will defend them. And his zeal will take up arms, and he will equip his servants for retribution on their enemies. He will put on justice as a breastplate, and he will grasp sure judgment as a helmet. He will select fairness as an invincible shield. Yet he will sharpen his severe wrath into a spear, and he will fight with those of the world against the irrational. Shafts of lightning will hurl forth accurately, and, as if from a well-curved bow of clouds, they will be expelled and will fly to the determined mark. And hail will be cast like stones full of anger, and the water of the sea will rise up against them, and the rivers will charge forth harshly. The spirit of virtue will stand firm against them, and like a whirlwind will divide them, and he will lead all the world of iniquity into a waste land, and malice will overthrow the seats of power. Wisdom is better than power, and a prudent man is better than a powerful one. Therefore, hear, O kings, and understand, learn, you judges of the ends of the earth. Listen closely, you who hold the attention of the crowds, and who please yourselves by disturbing the nations. For power has been given to you from the Lord and strength from the Most High, who will examine your works and scrutinize your thoughts. For when you were ministers of his kingdom, you did not judge correctly, nor keep the law of justice, nor walk according to the will of God. Horribly and quickly he will appear to you, because he will make a severe judgment for those who are in charge. For to the little, great mercy is granted, but the powerful will endure powerful torment. For the Lord will not exempt anyone's character, nor will he stand in awe of anyone's greatness, because he himself made the little and the great, and he is equally concerned for everyone. But a powerful torture pursues the powerful. Therefore, O kings, these, my words, are for you, so that you may learn wisdom and not perish. For those who have justly preserved justice will be justified, and those who have learned these things will find what to answer. Therefore, desire my words, love them, and you will have instruction. Wisdom is pure and never fades away, and is easily seen by those who love her, and found by those who seek her. She anticipates those who desire her, so that she first reveals herself to them. Whoever awakens early to seek her, will not labor, for he will find her sitting at his door. Therefore, by thinking about her, understanding is perfected, and whoever remains watchful for her, will quickly be secure. For she goes about seeking such as are worthy of her, and she reveals herself to them cheerfully in the ways, and meets them with all foresight. For the very true beginning of her is the desire for instruction. Therefore, the zeal for instruction is love, and love is the keeping of her laws, and the keeping of her laws is the perfection of incorruptibility. While incorruptibility makes us near to God. And so, the desire for wisdom leads to an everlasting kingdom. If, therefore, your delight is in thrones and scepters, O kings of the people, love wisdom, so that you may reign forever. Love the light of wisdom, all you who lead the peoples. But what wisdom is, and how she was made, I will report, and I will not hide the mysteries of God from you, but I will investigate her from the beginning of her birth, and I will place the knowledge of her in the light, and will not pass over the truth. Neither will I hold to the path that dwindles away with envy, because such a man will not partake in wisdom. For the proliferation of the wise is sanity for the world, and a wise king is the mainstay of the people. Therefore, receive instruction by my words, and it will benefit you. Proverbs 24 verses 30 through 34. I passed by the field of a lazy man, and by the vineyard of a foolish man. And behold, it was entirely filled with nettles, and thorns had covered its surface, and the stone wall was destroyed. When I had seen this, I laid it up in my heart, and by this example, I received discipline. You will sleep a little, I said. You will slumber briefly. You will fold your hands a little, so as to rest. And destitution will overtake you like a runner, and begging will overtake you like an armed man.